I wanted to quote actually Benjamin Franklin here really quickly, who was probably a very well defined classical liberal in himself, and he said that those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Now, I asked you on here partially to talk about the idea of the vaccine passports. Now, that seems like a pretty good place to start. And is it right for us to give up that sort of freedom of movement without requiring our papers essentially, or our COVID status certification, I think, as Boris is describing it at the minute? Is that something we should even consider allowing in order to, as we say, purchase a little safety?
No, clearly not, and I'd even take issue with the word safety. We have all been taught by our parents and society at large to lead our lives in ways which ensure that we have a relatively safe life. And we have created institutions that are focused on safety and also professional associations and so on. But when the government tells us what is safe and what isn't, and we don't necessarily agree with their definitions of safety, it becomes an act of oppression, really, if they decide to plow on regardless. Now, it may be that as a result of their own propaganda and fear peddling, that a very large swathe of society believes that the government's definition of safety is the correct one. But that doesn't mean to say that we all do by any stretch of the imagination. A very, very large number of people in the United Kingdom believe that the government's approach to the so-called COVID-19 pandemic was and is totally inappropriate. Individuals should be allowed to determine themselves the degree of risk that they're willing to tolerate. And many people believe that actually COVID-19 no longer really represents much in the way of risk. It clearly is if you were to have contracted the disease and you're obese, or you're of a certain age, or you have underlying health conditions that had represented the threat, but probably no greater a threat than the risk represented by contracting a flu, or indeed the common cold. Or a host of other respiratory related issues. There is a big question mark over the cause of death of many people who have their deaths attributed to COVID-19. And therefore, I think it's absolutely right for certain of us in society to question whether the government's definition of public health is an appropriate one vis-a-vis COVID-19, and certainly whether the means of responding to the fact that certain people, for example, haven't taken the vaccine, should be discriminated against in terms of their ability to avail of certain services, like going down the pub and having a pint. It's many people, many more learned than I, are of the view that vaccine passports are really a step too far. To be able to have to show papers on the strength of an increasingly weak argument that we're exposing ourselves to risk by going out and not wearing masks, or going down the pub, or choosing to do things that we, using our own volition, choose to do. It's stretching credulity, and I never thought that I would live in a society where it's verging on tyrannical in terms of its madcap notions in terms of how we should lead our lives.
Now, I can already hear the arguments against you in my head from people who tend to be quite, should we say, cautious about the risks of COVID. Like the death rates, I think will, whether they are accurate, will come out in the public inquiry or in the lawsuits that are currently being filed by relatives of people who were unable to see their dying family members because they were attributed to have had COVID. And I know there's progress sort of that moving through the courts, but I'm not keen to get into that as much as I am into like, what would your response be to people who say, you know, okay, so we've had a lot of people die from this, purportedly, and well, according to the figures anyway, like the death rates are a little above the 5-year average. There's again dispute as to whether that's because people have died because of COVID, whether people are not getting treatment because they're scared to go to hospital. But they would say that, look, we're just asking you to, you know, be cautious, to just wear the mask, to just stay inside and isolate until we get a handle on this thing, because, you know, that's the righteous thing to do. Like, people are saying, you know, we can protect and save lives here, arguably. I mean, we'll get on to Florida and Texas soon, but like that is the argument. And why do you think that is invalid in your mind?
Well, it's not invalid. You know, I think most of us, when the lockdown was announced over a year ago, were of the view that, yeah, we'll give it a try and see if this has any impact. I was traveling all over the place, you know, wearing my government hat. And I was in Helsinki running a business event, and was on my way back to the UK. And Helsinki airport was deserted by that stage. You know, flying had all but stopped, and we all had the feeling that something foreboding was about to happen. We, you know, our kids, who, both my children who are grown up, live in England, and we had brought them back home because we felt that something was going to happen. And obviously the announcement happened that we were going to have lockdown. But of course, you know, again, it's been widely stated that, you know, and it was widely understood at the time that we thought this was going to be a short-term measure. And now we're over a year away from that position, that announcement, and we're still in this ridiculous lockdown. Certain parts of the United Kingdom are in lockdown, and we've got no roadmap for getting out of it yet. And Northern Ireland being the case in point, it's absolutely absurd. You know, we have elected representatives who do not give a damn about the fact that people's livelihoods have been utterly and completely destroyed. They don't give a damn about the fact that we can't go on holiday and get the vitamin D that we need in order to go on a sunny holiday. You know, it's absolutely absurd. We have done what has been asked of us and more with bells on, and yet they've still locked us down. We've taken, I haven't, but many of us have taken their vaccine, and still people who have taken the vaccine are still required to wear masks and still can't go where they want to go. And we had a report today in the Daily Telegraph to say that we have probably achieved herd immunity by Monday of next week, and yet still we're locked down. Still we have to wear masks. Still they're jumping over hoops trying to explain the unexpected consequences of their various vaccines. You know, it is absolutely beyond belief that we still have these absurdly draconian, over the top, hysterical reactions to what is essentially a seasonal flu spike. Now, I know that if you compare the winter numbers of the winter 2020-2021 to the previous 5-year average, it is clearly a large spike. But if you compare it with the 10-year average up to that point, or the 15 or the 20-year, it's not at all. It's a long tail phenomenon. It is questionable to what extent even that the virus is a causality, because many people, as the government keeps telling us, are wandering around with the virus, are completely unaffected by it. They don't have to go to hospital. They don't have to get any medical treatment. That's certainly not going to kill them. It's certainly not going to kill any young people if they contract this so-called pandemic virus. So could it possibly be that there are other cofactors at play here that relate to public health? The fact that the government is not referring at all to pandemic levels of obesity, the fact that we have many people in society who haven't got the first idea how to look after their personal health and well-being because they eat badly, they eat junk food, which still, by the way, bizarrely has not been banned under the government's public health regulations. So, you know, it is perfectly acceptable for us in this so-called free society to be able to question these absurd and ridiculous over-the-top policies as a means of responding to COVID-19.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter, or sign up to our mailing list. Thanks a lot to our sponsor, ExpressVPN, the #1 most trusted VPN. Get lightning fast connectivity with servers in 160 locations across 94 countries. Keep your browsing privacy safe with ExpressVPN and get a 35% discount on 12 months of ExpressVPN when you follow the link in the description below. Don't forget my book is now out and available to order on Amazon and on bookshop.org. That's Brexit, the Establishment Civil War. And most importantly, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.